Hi, Victoria. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I just feel, as we said before we got on the call, I think we've had a whole podcast before actually even getting started. But one of the things that I just want to share with you is I just feel like every conversation more and more, I'm like, you truly are mi hermana.
Yes, I am.
Seriously. I mean,
Yes.
I knew that when we first met, but I think that more and more, I'm like, damn, this girl is a mirror of me at a younger age. She's got
Yeah.
courage, she's got balls, she says exactly what she's thinking, and she's motivated to create change in the world for women.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It's amazing to see, and I feel like I feel very blessed that we met each other at iConexion. There's a shout out for Richard
Yes. Shout out to
at
the
the Latino
hive.
Hive. It was amazing, and I felt like the moment that I saw you, I was like, "Wow, I feel like I know her." And then when we sat down for lunch, and you told me your name, I was like, "Oh wait, I think I follow you."
Yeah, that was an interesting combo.
That was a really like telling moment where I was like, oh my God, actually, I do follow you and you're pretty fucking amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So allow me to introduce you and then I'm going to actually have you kind of take it away and tell a little bit more. But Victoria is actually not just an entrepreneur, she is an advocate for women and really, truly seeing women for where they're at and wants to champion them to get unstuck. And we know as women, sometimes we're not the best advocate for ourselves. And we all need a champion or a mindset coach that's going to help us get there. And what I love about following Victoria is that she really speaks her truth and she walks her walk and she talks her talk. So some people just talk, she shows up. And it's something that, like I said, I just really respect and honor about her. And it's something that I know is just going to continue to make her more successful in the world. And she also has a podcast that she recently launched, and it's called actually Banking
Banking on
on
Cultura.
Cultura. Banking
Yes.
on Cultura. So I'm super excited to actually get into that. And one of the other things that she talks a lot about is imposter syndrome and how we actually combat that as women. And I want to be really clear about something with Victoria. Not only does she just ooze like, confidence, but she oozes that anything is possible. And I'm not just talking that she's an advocate for women, because really she's an advocate for people. And I love the fact that she's a Latina woman who is making change. And there's not enough Latina women in this world that are showing us the way to get there. And I really respect that. So thank you for being here.
Listen, I'm gonna call you every morning because you could talk me up every morning. I could start my day like that. Thank you so
Exactly. We all need a Michelle in our life.
much. For real.
Exactly. Exactly. So why don't we get started actually by kind of just talking a little bit about like how did you launch the mastermind? How did you become a coach? You talked to me a little bit about starting your career on Wall Street. So I'm super interested to hear about that.
Yeah, so before I ventured out on my own 7 years ago, I was in corporate for 15 years. Like probably many of your listeners, I was taught to take your booty to school and then get you a job that pays you well. Like
That's
that
right.
was the path, right? And I was like,
Exactly.
okay, that's the path I'm gonna follow.
That was the
Let's do
formula,
it.
right? We
Right.
all
That
had
was
a
the formula.
formula.
Exactly. And so that's what I did. So my first gig was on Wall Street after college, worked there for a few years and then transitioned. I worked on legislation in Albany and Washington. Then I transitioned to consumer product goods. Then I transitioned to HR. So
Wow.
many reinventing of myself throughout my 15th career on Wall Street and in just corporate America, period. And my last job, I was the head of talent management for Johnson and Johnson, and they wanted to relocate me to Tampa. Now, your listeners are just getting to know me, but I'm more of a Miami girl. No shade to Tampa, but
Exactly.
I'm
Girl,
more of a
I
Miami.
see you in Miami, like no problem.
Yes, exactly. I'm more of her. And so, I gracefully bowed out and I was like, okay, let me get my severance. Thank you so much. And, I got along with corporate America. We were cool. I would travel on their dime, stay at 5-star restaurants. I would meet incredible people. I was doing my thing. I had no plan of leaving. But after I got laid off, I was going on interviews and I wasn't able to close the deal. And I like to think of myself as a closer. So I'm like, okay, what is
Well, you
happening
are a
here?
closer. We know you're a closer.
Thank you. And I took it as a sign from God, like, you know what, V, like you got some savings, like bet on yourself, see what you can do. And so I started my first business doing what I knew how to do, which was interview training, resume writing, coaching.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how my journey started. And then 7 years later, I've launched 3 different types of businesses, and we've managed to, stay in the green. And someone who had no plans of entrepreneurship and was very comfortable in the corporate structure, transitioned out, because once you get a taste of that freedom, baby, it's like,
Exactly.
I don't know if I'm ever going back.
Hard to go back. Well, entrepreneurship
Right.
is hard. The freedom of running your own thing is often nicer.
Yes, it is nicer. And it just, I think for me, it really allows true freedom, like what I believe freedom is, like truly being the architect of your life and career, where you have complete autonomy, control over what happens, right? And of course, God has a plan for everyone. So
exactly.
We're not talking about
that word control, I'm not really sure about.
Right. But, when you are working for someone else, you are at the mercy of what they think.
Yes,
you can do,
true.
what your value is, how much they think you're worth in terms of how much you get paid and whether you get promoted or not. Like there's just a hierarchy, right, that you have to work through, versus when you're on your own, like the buck stops with you, baby. Like you make the decisions, you decide, right? Your ceiling is set by you, nobody else.
Exactly.
And I think that to me is true freedom.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you describe your trajectory and having so many different types of areas within business, I assume that, because a lot of times people think, oh no, I start as a marketer or I start as a banker and I just keep working through that same area to get to the top. But what I love to hear about what you're talking about, which is what I preach about, is having diversification and how it helps us. It probably helped you be a better entrepreneur, I would assume.
Yeah, I would like to think so. And, I get bored real easy. Mm-hmm. So I think that was a part of it. I was kind of like, oh, I want to do something new. I want to do something different. I also think it was just like God looking out, because my last corporate gig wasn't my first layoff. Like I got laid off before that, right? And each time brought me to a new opportunity, a new way to strengthen my skills, meet new people, spread my wings, and not be afraid of change.
Exactly.
Right? And in entrepreneurship, like there's a change coming. Like you got to be able to adapt and flow, right, with what's going on in the world, what's going on in your life, all the things. And I think it really prepared me to not really shy away if there was an opportunity to reinvent myself or do something different. Because since then, I reinvented myself multiple times. Like my first business, I was doing resume writing and interview training.
Exactly.
So I don't do any of that now, right? So multiple reinventions over and over and over again. And I love that for me.
Yeah. Well, when you think about reinvention, right? And when do you think that comes about? So like in the process, like you just said, like I get bored really easily. So how do you know that it's time to reinvent yourself? The signs is not only just for yourself, but like for a client,
Yeah, I think it's paying attention to the signs. Like a lot of us have a lot of things that are going on in our lives, and we like pay attention to it for a hot second and then we move on because, life be lifing, we're distracted, something else comes along. But there are pivotal moments that happen in our lives that we get to decide, okay, are we going to pay attention to this or not? And right? Yeah, because totally. If you're grown, you know what those moments are. It's like when you're dating and like you knew the red flags
But you went in.
When, right.
You're like,
Deciding,
I see it, but I'm going to do
right.
it because I just
But
curious.
Evan, we're going to just hope for the best, right? So it's paying attention to those signs is really important. And also trusting your gut. Women's intuition is a competitive advantage that we don't tap into enough.
I agree with you.
Right? And it is something that, you know, God instilled in us that we have over men. And it's part of what makes us amazing. And once you choose to really hone in to what is your gut telling you, what is your intuition telling you, you will start to see like you come into yourself and trust yourself more and more, because you're going to start listening to yourself versus, you know, these gurus on social media or whoever has something to say, because everybody got an opinion, right? But the only one that matters is your own, right? How you think about yourself.
Exactly.
So I think those two things will really help you.
So like when you talk about, I mean, you're totally speaking my language, obviously, but not obviously, because not everybody believes in tapping into your intuition. Like, tell me, like, describe to me, like when you receive the signs and you get curious and you really like tune in, like, how do you know if it's right or not? Like, what does intuition mean to you?
The only way to know is to do. There is no other way around it. You have to do the trial and error of it. You have to be okay with making the mistake. You have to be okay with something not working. You have to be okay with being a student, because the only way that you're going to know whether or not something is going to work is you have to work it, right? You have to try it out and see how it goes. I mean, that's the beauty of life. If we all had this like cookie cutter program to follow, step by step, never, you know, color outside the lines, never make a left when you're supposed to go right, never make a U-turn, like life would be so boring and dull.
Yes. Well, and then honestly, we know our greatest success comes from the unknown, right? So the reality is that if we don't try, we'll never know, right?
Totally. And if you're not uncomfortable, you will never grow. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I like to give the analogy when you go to the gym and you have like a squat day. Nobody likes leg day. Like that shit is hard. I don't care what anybody says. Like nobody likes it. The next 2 days you're sore, but when you pass by that mirror and you see a little booty pop and you see like your thighs getting,
Damn, that's just looking good.
Like, oh, okay, I gotta go back tomorrow, even though I don't want to, right? But it's because you stretched yourself and allowed yourself to be uncomfortable, and that's how you got to the result, right? You're not going to be able to get there without being uncomfortable.
So I love that you're talking about this, because really what it's talking about is that there's stages in growth, right? That it doesn't happen overnight. And so a lot of clients, and I know I struggle with this a lot, is that, you know, clients are like, but why is it taking so long? So how do you go about plotting the plan to make change? Like, so when a transition comes about, right? And you know that you actually have to develop a plan. Like, how do you go about doing that?
I think it's paying attention to what has worked in the past for you, what has worked for others that are doing what you want to do, right? Paying attention to the blueprint that's already been written. If you don't have to reinvent the wheel, don't, right? And look, we're all creative, we're all amazing, but 9 times out of 10, somebody has done what you want to do. So tap into their skill sets, invest in their programs, hire them as a coach, pay for a strategy call so that you can work smarter instead of harder to get to your destination faster.
Well, and I love the fact that you're talking about that, because I think what happens is a lot of times people take the long road, or they don't choose to seek support. And that's another thing that women struggle with, is being vulnerable enough to ask for help. So how do you, like, do you find that women come to your program like already ready? Like your mastermind group, like when you run those, like those women basically have already bought into your mission, right? So tell me about a success story related to that. Like, what's your great, you know, I'm sure you have a million of them, you know?
Yeah. I mean, well, the first thing is you're never ready, right? It's like when you have a kid, like you're just never ready. Like you put all the parameters in place to help you prepare, but like you're never ready. And whenever you're doing something new, right, the natural human response is, "Ooh, this is scary. This is making me uncomfortable, self-doubt. I don't know if I can do this." Like it's part of you being human. Like it's never gonna go away. right? But what
Mhm.
allows you to feel more confident in the pursuit of whatever goal you have in front of yourself is the preparation, right? Is the research, is the having the conversations to learn more, is you getting more comfortable with the vernacular, is you getting more understanding around what deliverables would look like for success, right? Those things will help you build more confidence, but saying you're ready or using that as an excuse to not move forward is actually, doing more harm than good for you, because
Absolutely.
technically you're never ready.
Well, yeah, that's totally true. Because the thing is that, listen, that's usually because somebody's ego is holding on to them, right? So what is
Correct.
the ego meant to be there for, is to help keep us safe. But sometimes if you allow it to control you, you never move forward, right?
Totally. One of my favorite success stories is a student in the Dare to Leap Academy, which is my online platform where I teach women in corporate how to transition to entrepreneurship without losing their financial security. And she's a corporate lawyer, made it to the C-suite, works for a tech company, like badass, like
Mhm.
killing it. And she came into the program and she had an insecurity about asking people for money because she thought they didn't have the money or they
Mhm.
wouldn't pay her.
Yes,
And after her going through the modules and coming to the coaching calls, she was able to make $10,000 in less than 30 days.
that's amazing.
And it was just a belief shift
Mhm.
because she thought people didn't have the money and people weren't going to pay her. And I was like, no, 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 you're going to submit that invoice
Yeah,
and they're gonna
exactly.
pay you. And that's exactly what happened, right? So many of the things
Amazing.
that we believe we are incapable of, or people can't afford us, oh, we can't charge that price, it's too expensive. Make the ask.
Mm,
Make the ask,
I
right?
love that.
Make the ask, because that's how you're going to get, right? People who don't ask don't eat,
I was
right?
going to say that.
So you need to make sure that you make the ask so that people can pay you. Or maybe they're going to say no, maybe they're going to refer you to somebody else. It does not matter. What's important is that you made the ask, because once you do it once, you can do it
It
again and
gets
again.
more comfortable. Yeah. And the thing is that I also believe we train people the way we want to be treated, right?
Mhm.
So if you don't make the ask, whether that be in a personal relationship or in a business relationship, then you don't want to end up being resentful. So
Right.
it's about owning your power too, right? And that's one of the things that I love about you too, is that you truly own your power. Like, were you taught that at a young age, or were you born that way? We talked a little before we got on the call about, like, we're Latinas, so it just sort of comes out.
I know our ancestors, their energy, their influence, like we carry that with us.
It's
Some of
so
us
true.
choose to like dim it down instead of toning it all the way up. But our ancestors were thugs, okay? They were traveling across borders. They was like
Totally.
traveling in the middle of the night. They were risking it all,
Yeah,
right? Coming
they
here,
really
my dad
were.
came to this country at 15. He had freaking less than $50 in his pocket. Like, that's thug. Like,
That
who
is
would do that now?
wow.
Right?
That's amazing.
And so, like, feeding off of that energy. Also, I grew up in New York, which is a city that has its own vibe and energy and grit and kind of like hustle mentality and just like, you better be confident or somebody's going to call you out kind of vibe.
Right.
So I think that added to it. And also, I'm a daddy's girl. I used to wake up with him at 4 a.m. to go to his restaurant and literally sleep in the booths because he ran the restaurant. And I got to see, front and center, like what happens when you like work hard. So I think all of those influences really allowed me to own very much of who I was. My mother was also someone with a very strong personality. Like when she walked in a room, you saw her, like
Commanded the space.
blue crystal eyes. Like she was just like, people gravitated to her,
Mhm.
so I think I get a combination like of all those things that has allowed me to get here, in addition to just experience and making mistakes
Yes.
and like, oh man, I shouldn't have did that. Okay, next time I want to do this. And just letting go of guilt.
I love that.
Guilt.
Yeah, like meeting yourself where you're at. And I love that you're talking about mistakes. So, like, who gave you permission to make mistakes? Because so often, again, another thing women struggle with is being vulnerable enough to make a mistake and getting started on the path and realizing it's not a mistake, it's just learning.
Yeah. I think you're gonna make mistakes. There's nothing you can do about it. Like that's part of
Totally.
being a human being. There's gonna be something that you do, right? And as you grow with experience and wisdom, you realize more of what's right or what's wrong, or the type of women you actually want to be, right?
Totally.
Like I remember growing up with all that grit and growing up with a man and growing up on Wall Street, like I had a lot of like aggressive tone to me and very direct. Not that anything was wrong with that, but I would pay attention to how people will respond and also some of the feedback. And they would tell me, hey, like make me a little uncomfortable, or, maybe you want to say that a little bit differently. Like close friends of mine, right?
Yes.
Who I don't want to hurt, who I
Yes.
don't want to, I don't want them to feel shy about coming to me. Like I want to welcome them with open arms. They would share that feedback with me. And then I had to make a decision like, okay, V, what kind of woman do you want to be? Like, do you want people to be constantly intimidated by you? Do you want them to receive the messages that you're trying to deliver? And also, do you want to be that hardcore? Like, do you want to be more softer? Do you want to be more mindful? Do you want to think more before you speak? Do you want to just, carry yourself with an elegance, versus an aggressiveness? Now, there's a time and a place to bring out
Both.
either
Yes.
one, right? Or both, correct?
Yes.
But paying attention to those things and deciding for yourself, like, who do you want to be? And I knew I didn't want to be that, right? I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be more welcoming, and I wanted to be more softer, and I wanted to be, because I'm love.
Yes,
Just
you
like
are loved. Like,
you, right? Just like you, like I'm love. And people weren't able to see that until they got to know me,
well,
right?
because of trust.
Yes,
And
that
both of us
too.
have that too, where it's like, well, can I trust you? Are you my people? Right.
Correct. Correct.
And are you going to misuse my trust?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
so it's interesting too, because when I know we both were trained in the corporate world. And so when you're trained in that environment, you're taught, and also you think that you're supposed to be adopting a persona that may
Yes,
not be your own.
correct.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I think what you're describing is there's room for both. There's room for the soft, sensitive, beautiful part of who you are. And there's also room for that tough, strong woman who is decisive, can make hard choices, because that's
Totally.
what this is about, right? And I
Totally.
love that you're describing that, because I think that people think it's all or nothing.
Mm-hmm. Or that you have to be one or the other,
Yes.
instead of creating like a hybrid. And that's where I'm at. I'm, creating a blend of the two, but also, turning up one part when it's necessary. Like if I got somebody, like if I'm negotiating at the table, like there might be something that comes up which I need to be more empathetic towards, because I know that's going to help me with the negotiation, right? But then there's other times where it's like, this is
Uh-oh.
a ridiculous offer. We're not doing this. Goodbye.
Yes. Exactly. Thank you. Thank you so much. But no,
Yes, exactly.
non-negotiable. This is not negotiable. But and I do
Exactly.
think, like, it's funny you're saying that about how people receive you. Because I know, like, when you're talking about your mom, and that when she stood into a room, that she commanded presence and she had a sense of power, like people received her energy, because really at the end of the day it's an energy exchange, no matter what type of situation it is. I shared with you before we got on the call, in this period of time that I've known you, since being at iConexion, the Latino Hive, to seeing you today, the beautiful part is that you're continuing to grow, right? And I think what is gorgeous, and we talked a little bit about my own life before we got on the call too, is that I love that I attract people that are in the desire to continue growing, to
Yes.
know themselves. But then here you are, I think probably like 15 years younger than me, and we can be in this common space together.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
one is not like over the other. It's a, wow, I see you and I hear the stuff you're going through, and it's similar to me.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And I think I teach this actually to a lot of my corporate clients, right? Because my
Yeah.
corporate clients, they're like a whole nother beast, all in their own. But a lot of what they do is like, I'm senior. you're not here, right?
Okay.
There's definitely like this strong emphasis placed on humanity, who has the final say, all that jazz. And it's very difficult to humanize that because everybody's competing, right? For the spot, for the respect, for the buy-in, right? For the chance. And it's interesting because when I have them go through my programs, I have a signature program called Shine, and it purposely is designed where I have C-suite executives in the program going through it at the same time as entry level and middle management.
That's
Because
so
what they realize is that they are more alike than they are different in terms of the emotional battles and mindset battles that they have with themselves, right? It doesn't matter how senior you are. You're still going to feel insecure.
It's
like
just
it doesn't.
they're just dealing with different players, right? So it's like it's the same struggle, different players.
Totally, exactly. But once we're able to see that commonality between each other, it allows us to bring down like the defense mechanisms and take off the armor and give yourself permission to relate to someone who is younger than you, who is older than you, who might be on a different path, right? And create that commonality so you could have a human interaction.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, because that's really what it's about is respecting each other and respecting each other for who you are, where you came from, your differences, your level, because each person has a gift to bring, right? And
Absolutely.
speaking of that gift and speaking of differences and things like that, I'd like to know for you what it was like being not only just now being a woman, female founder, Latina, Puerto Rican, but in addition, what it was like for you being in the corporate world. And, you know, one of my goals has always been to bring more Latina women forward. So when I was invited to the Hive, I was like, oh my God, this is the biggest gift for me. I remember in the corporate world, I was one of the few Latinas. And because I don't look Latina, it's also hard, right? And so I think it's beautiful for me to see and hear the things that you've accomplished in bringing our culture forward. But can you tell me about that? What it was like?
What it was like to be a Latina in corporate?
Yes. And then what it's like now being an entrepreneur. Yeah.
So it's so funny. I used to strut my stuff through those corporate hallways with my
Girl,
curly
I'm
hair,
sure you did.
and my Brooks Brothers suit, and my tattoo on my ankle.
I love
Like
it.
I used to be strutting my stuff, okay? And I remember my boss at the time, Black woman, bald head, head of HR, like badass.
Yeah.
She called me into her office one day and she was like, okay, two things, Victoria. One, I'm gonna need you to stop wearing those heart earrings. So I used to wear these heart earrings. They were from Tiffany's, okay? They weren't no Claire's heart earrings, no shades of Claire, but they were like bougie heart earrings, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean I need to stop wearing these heart earrings? She was like, the partners are not going to take you seriously. Like, you need to stop wearing those earrings. And I was like, what? Like, I'm love. Like, this is who I am. Like, what do you mean I got to stop wearing? I was like, okay. Then the second thing she said was, your garments are too tight. Like, you're too curvy for your suits. You need to wear looser
It's
suits.
illegal to do that, by the way.
It's a distraction. Is it?
It's illegal.
It's illegal?
Yeah, it's illegal.
Tell someone how to dress?
Even when I was actually at USC's business school, I used to have to train people. It was very difficult. Very difficult to actually give people some very conscious feedback without going over the line.
Oh, interesting.
Like I had this Chinese girl come in and she was wearing red head to toe, like a red suit, because, you know, red is good luck in Chinese culture, right? Red hose, red suit, red earrings, and red shoes. So, but it's just, how do you diplomatically share something like that to somebody, like what your boss did with you? But it's not actually okay.
Right. Interesting. That's interesting that it's illegal because I feel like a lot of these corporate jobs tell their people how to dress. Like you gotta wear the
want
suit,
them to match the part.
business attire, right?
Yeah.
But so she shared that with me, and I was like, that I think that was it was a pivotal moment because it was like something that I noted, like, wow, these people really trying to tone down, like, this is whack. Yeah, I was like, this is not cool. Like, I don't like this, right? But you know, I still played the game and I was mindful of the feedback because I always welcome constructive feedback. And I also know she was looking out. Look, Black
Mhm.
woman, bald-headed,
Totally.
head of HR. Imagine all the things that she had to strip of herself to get to that role.
Totally. Yeah.
You know? So she was looking out. She had the best intentions, and I get it. But this is why you have to be mindful of who you take advice from and also where they are in their lives,
Mm.
right? She had to fight so many different battles to allow me to show up as myself,
Exactly.
to even get me a job there,
Exactly.
right?
That's so true.
So I respect that, you know, and that's why I respected the feedback. And now it's so much a part of my story that I get to share over and over again. Maybe that was the point. The point was for her to share that with me so that I can share in this moment, right? And there'll be lessons that people can take away from it. But I remember that happening. Another example is I had met a Latina who was killing it in financial services. And I met her. She looked badass. She had a suit on. She had her hair back, like beautiful woman. And she told me, "Hey, Victoria, you should probably pin back your hair because your curls are like a distraction."
Mm.
And I was like, "A distraction?" I was like, and you know, our
Like, you're
hair,
my asset.
right? Exactly. I was like, our hair is so much a part of our cultura
Culture.
and
Exactly.
our DNA, right? And who we are. And I was like, what? But what really kind of like set me off was the reason why she was telling me that was because her boss, the CEO, told her, "Hey, put your hair in a bun. Don't wear loud clothing. You don't want to be a distraction. You want people to respect you. You want them to see your intellect and not be distracted by the color on your lips."
Mm. Wow.
And I was like, "Oh, hell no." Like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm rocking my curls. I'm doing what I need to do. But
I'm doing Victoria Jenn.
right. I'm doing Victoria Jenn. But again, lessons learned, right? I had to decide, do I want to play in that arena? Because if I want to play in that arena, I might have to do it that way, right? Or do I want to be the change I want to see? And I
Exactly.
chose the latter, right? I chose to be like, "Oh, well, I'm still going to wear my hair like this. So fire me."
Yeah. Well,
Like,
it's funny because I think, one of the things we know, and I know we both did this, sort of early training and mock interviewing and all that stuff. We know every company has a corporate culture, right?
right.
We know that every person, when you meet them, are going to profile you and be like, where do you fit in my world? Okay. And for good or bad, and
Yeah.
it is a choice. And we shared that before we got on the call, where I was like, I went through a similar thing. I didn't tell you about the story where I was told to cut my hair. I had long blonde hair out of college, and I was told that I needed to wear my hair at shoulder length if I wanted to actually get ahead and get promoted. At the same time as I was told to use somebody as my radar because they were more polished and poised, as we discussed. And the reality is what we're saying is, how do we want to show up? It goes back to that. And what do you want to sell out of yourself? Because it's a choice, right? In order to adopt someone else's persona that they think you need to be, or do
Right.
you not?
Right. It's up to you.
And both of us were like, fuck that.
Basically.
Exactly.
Basically.
You know what? Good for us, right? Good for us that you chose to wear your hair curly and you had beautiful red lips and tight clothes. I bet you all the men loved it, so it's all good.
I made it here, so
She's like, there's no problem happening.
like
So
it is. And also it's like it's one of those things, and it goes back to the point I was making earlier. It's like you have to decide what type of uncomfortable you want to make people.
yeah,
Right?
I love
Because
that.
I made people uncomfortable, clearly. Right. And I had to decide, am I okay with making people uncomfortable in that way? Or are they trying to make me be a certain way because I'm a woman? You know, the other day, I'm actually going to do this. It's just reminded me. Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh yeah, Vandercheck. I
Yeah,
love him.
Gary Vaynerchuk
Very
posted on LinkedIn this thing about like, I don't know what the beginning said, but in big bold, it said, "Fuck that."
Oh yeah, I saw that. I totally
Right.
saw that he posted that. It
And
was
I was
so
like,
good.
isn't this interesting that if a woman were to say those words and put that on LinkedIn, she would not be celebrated.
It
She
would
would
be
be
vulgar.
judged.
Yeah,
Yes, it would be
exactly.
vulgar. She would be judged. People would pull out from working with her. But here you have Gary, and they're paying him to come do a keynote at their corporate offices using this language,
Exactly.
cursing on stage. But then
Exactly.
they'll turn around and tell me. I remember I gave a keynote to one of the big financial firms,
Yeah.
and I had the word badass on my slide,
Yeah.
and they asked me to change it.
Are you serious?
They asked me to change it. And because the
Wow.
check was so fat, I said, you know what, this little word, that's okay. They're gonna get my flavor when I
On the
talk.
stage.
Um,
Exactly.
so I changed it. But it was like it was so interesting to me because if it was Gary Vaynerchuk, they would not have asked
They
that
would
man to change
never ask him of
anything.
that. Oh my
But they
God.
asked me to change it.
So it's
You
so
just reminded
interesting
me. I'm gonna repost it and I'm about to talk my shit on LinkedIn. So guys,
oh my
Victoria
God.
Jenn Rodriguez, come to the show.
Oh my God, I love it. So it's so funny because I when I quit the corporate world, I actually, going back to not wanting to ruffle the feathers of anyone, I saved the domain fuckit.com.
I
And
love it.
I had a whole brand that I wanted to roll out, but then I got afraid that I was going to be ridiculed as a woman for
Mhm.
coming out vulgar. So that's so interesting. Wow, crazy. But I did see that post and it's so good when he did. But anyway, so we've talked for a while. And of course, I just love you so much. I really could just sit and listen to you for hours. And I just love your passion and your desire to just speak your truth. And it's one of your greatest gifts and it'll just continue to serve you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, what I would love to do is actually have you wrap up by telling us a little bit about what's next for you in your brand. I know you just launched this podcast, but what's next? Like, what's big on your horizon? I know you have an event coming up. Since you are on the East Coast, you know, people that are on the East Coast can come to your events. And
Yes.
obviously, you have all these platforms. So, tell us about it.
Yeah, sure. So last week, actually, I launched my latest baby, which is Banking a Cultura podcast. And it's been an interesting ride since we went live with the premiere. We've had over 1 million impressions, which is insane.
Yeah.
But just like really just reiterates, okay, V, keep going. It's a lot of work, but keep going. I keep
Really.
leading
Just yet
charge.
another
Go, go,
baby.
go. So in terms of what next is making that podcast and show be the number one in the country and really just a place where Latinos can go to own their Latinidad and understand how to, break generational curses so that they can build generational wealth. And also be like a hub for organizations to learn how to market and do business with us because they have no
They have
freaking
no idea.
clue. They have no clue. And with the buying power of 2.8 trillion, honey, we got a lot of power.
Exactly.
Okay.
We got to start taking it seriously.
Right. We got to start taking this stuff seriously. And so my hope is with Banking on Cultura, like I instill, that type of energy in the community, right? To be more vocal about our power. I have this event in November in New York City. It is called Secure the Big Bag and Love Unapologetically. And I'm really pumped about it because, so many of us are in a chokehold. We're either like struggling with money or like money got us up at night or it's love, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my partner and I, Cara Ella, wanted to create an event where we brought these two super important worlds together. So how do you build multiple streams of income at the same time? How are you making sure that you are loving on yourself, loving on your partner, and perhaps building a business with your partner? How do you do that? Prenups, postnups, how do you even have those type of conversations? And also, how do you keep
What a great event and what great information to like have in advance.
Yeah, totally. And we like to do things edgy, so there's going to be a panel on how to keep it fly in the bedroom, right? And the health benefits of that, right? Because there are health benefits to you having sexual health. There are health benefits to it. And it's a co-ed experience. I usually only do women only. So now we are welcoming men. We want you to bring your boo, maybe meet a boo. Like we want you to really engulf and immerse yourself in this one of a kind experience. So if you guys are interested, you can go to
When November is it?
November 9th to the 10th.
Okay.
New York City.
Okay.
So securethebigbag.com is where you can go to register. And then of course, Banking on Cultura or platforms. So what's next? So making sure the pod is successful, making sure the event is successful, and just really listening to myself
Mm.
and going where God wants me to go and not standing in my own way.
Yeah, I love that. I love listening is such a key gift and tool. And you talked about intuition and listening in your gut like earlier in this. And I think it can't be undervalued to get curious about
Yeah,
those things. So,
totally.
well, I want to thank you for your time. And can you please tell people where to find you on Instagram and your website and all that kind of good
Yeah,
stuff?
sure. So on Instagram, TikTok, it's at IAM Victoria Jenn, JENN. And website is victoriajenn.com. So you can find my website and then you'll be fully immersed in my whole world. But on socials, it's at I am Victoria Jenn.
I love that. Well, I'm hoping that you're going to be the Oprah of the Latina community and maybe just the Oprah overall, the next one.
Yeah.
So I,
People keep bringing up Oprah to me. I was like, you know what? I got to meet this woman. She need to know about me, okay?
yeah, yeah, she doesn't know what she's missing yet. By the way, who said that she doesn't know about you? That's the
True.
other,
That is true. That
like
is
you didn't know that I knew about you, right?
that
And
is
when I met
true.
you, I was like, damn, she's even
Yeah,
better in person.
that is true. I gotta check my followers, see if Oprah's following me.
Exactly. Exactly. Now she's just probably trolling you.
Probably. I mean,
I mean,
it wouldn't be the first. Michelle, it wouldn't be the first.
I know, right? Well, there's all these DMs in there of like random trollers anyway. So as we know, as we
Thank you
all
so
know,
much for having me, by the way. I really
anytime,
appreciate it.
anytime. And I'm really grateful for our friendship, and I just look forward to seeing you blossom and continue to be successful.
Yeah, totally. And if any of your listeners hear this and reach out to me, let me know that you learned about me on Michelle's podcast. I welcome anyone from her community. Would love to get to know you guys. So definitely make sure to mention that.
Yeah, she has amazing programs, so please look her up. Okay.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful day, beautiful.
All right.